Hey, you should see my screen now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Manu.
Okay, thank you. And I see some thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So this is our topic, innovation elegance, what the people-centric methodology looks like. So learn, connect, and grow with IIBA Philippines chapter. That's what we're here for. And of course, we are very lucky to be joined with our guest speaker, Robert Snyder, hosted by me. I forgot to change the name. It's not hosted by Getsy this time. Okay, anyway, I want to promote some upcoming events. Building business capability is still open for registration. You can still get a 20% discount if you are an IIBA member. And for the Philippines chapter, we are holding our very first annual elections. It's going to happen April 27th. Stay tuned for more updates. We're going to have a hybrid event for this one. So if you want to be there, it's going to be in Makati City. We have officially one of our corporate accounts will be the sponsor, but more details to follow in on our LinkedIn page. So stay tuned. And in March, we're also going to have another event, another online event, another webinar, but I cannot share details about that yet. So that's all for scan this QR code if you want to see about building business capability. It's in Florida. We've been promoting the same event past few months now. But it's still there. It's still interesting. I would go if I was in the area. And for more on the elections, so if you are an IIBA Philippines member and you are interested in getting more involved, well, you don't have to be running for a seat to be involved. You can just reach out and we can have a conversation about how you can be more involved with IIBA Philippines in particular. And just for your information, these are the seats that are up for elections. We have a Vice President of Administration and Finance, Vice President of Sponsorship, Vice President Membership. So for more information, feel free to reach out to our LinkedIn page, and I will be happy to have a conversation with you around this. Here at IIBA Philippines, we want to be able to work with you so that we help you grow within your professional life. We don't really want volunteers over here. We don't really want you guys to go out of your way for this. We want to be able to figure out, well, how can we work with you as a member of this community? How can IIBA Philippines help you grow as a professional? So that's a kind of conversations we're having with our leaders. That's a kind of conversation we want to have with you. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Yeah, that's us. That's our team. We normally have free food when we get together. Scan that QR code for more info. And yeah, you have the email up there. Yeah, we're gonna have another one of these in April 27th. Hopefully we have a nicer venue. We just had it at some restaurant, but now we have actual venue sponsor this April, which is pretty exciting. More details to be announced. And we still have mugs. That's what it looks like. You can see. That's what the mug looks like. No, it's my background. Can't see it. But I will be giving these away to people who stay through to the end of the meeting. We can see in Zoom if you drop out and then come back in. I have to see that you're attending for the whole duration of the meeting, and you will have a chance to get one of these free giveaways. And yeah, and of course, on top of finding out more about the super interesting topic that's challenging the norms that we've all been trained to believe in and follow. So this is a super interesting topic that we also have. But yeah, you also get a chance to win the free month. Okay, so that's the end of my spiel. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, our guest speaker that we are all that I am definitely honored to be introducing today. I've only known Robert via LinkedIn. For a few months now, we've been planning this online event. But certainly, I would love to meet Robert in person. Very interesting guy. He has a background in technology, but he also has a grasp of the arts. And for a lot of us over here, that's kind of what we have to do for our respective jobs. If you're in tech and you're trying to be creative, that's sort of the balance that you have to strike. And so fortunately for us, we have someone who's a professional in both of those areas, the left and the right brain, right? The logical and the creative. So we're gonna get to hear from someone who's been there and done that for both of those areas. Very happy to introduce Mr. Robert Snyder. I hope I didn't mess up your name. Innovating Elegance. Congrats on your book that just came out. Can't wait to learn more about it. And yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Manu. Is my audio still okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. I'll start. I have some introductory words before I share my screen, but thank you everyone for joining. I'll start with one of my favorite cliches. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. With that cliche, I could be talking about a lifestyle choice, moving, new job, ending a bad relationship. And in a business setting, I might be talking about your business operations. But this session is about your business innovation methodology. What is your status quo? Your status quo is two and a half software-centric methodologies, waterfall, agile, hybrid, that have been around for 20 years. They harbor a dirty little secret, an awkward reality, that what makes innovation difficult, what makes teamwork difficult, isn't the software. When a project or a team gets itself into trouble, it's not as if a developer goes to the project manager or the sponsor and says, you know, that Python code, it's just too difficult. So sorry. That's exactly wrong. What makes teamwork difficult is us. It's the people. It's how we interact, govern each other, collaborate, or stink at collaborating. So formulating, and Manu, could I share my screen or you can stop sharing momentarily? So formulating a people-centric methodology shouldn't make anyone's head explode. It's not revolutionary, it's just overdue. And one of the best pieces of news about a people-centric methodology is that the role models for a people-centric methodology are already very familiar and nothing will surprise you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Why this topic and why now? It's because project success rates remain poor. The employee experience, often, it's poor. Psychological safety is not improving fast enough. And our incumbent methodologies, waterfall, agile, hybrid, these software-centric methodologies have not solved VUCA. For anyone who would like a refresher on the acronym VUCA, it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And for any of you who have heard this acronym no fewer than 10 times over the past week, maybe you'll be amused at its sibling acronym, BONNI, which stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Often I hear from executives and webinars all around the world, well, we're just in a VUCA environment. It's so resigned. I believe it's lazy, it's a cop-out, it's an excuse for poor management and poor leadership. Instead, let's innovate how we innovate. When I think of a people-centric methodology, I want to define what good looks like. And before I try to put labels on what good looks like, I don't mind an interim step of putting labels on what bad looks like. The rational part of my brain, as I search around for a word, and if a word comes to your mind, feel free to put it in the chat. But as I play thesaurus with myself, the rational part of my brain, what does bad look like? The word I land on is chaos. What is the opposite of chaos? Again, my rational part, the rational part of my brain arrives on the word discipline. That is what good looks like. But I have this other part of my brain. It's the touchy-feely, it's the sentimental part of my brain, the emotional side of my brain. What word comes to mind when I try to answer the question, what does bad look like? The word that comes to my mind is cruel, cruelty. And the good, what good looks like, the word, the label that comes to my mind through the emotional side of my brain is empathy. So what bad looks like is chaos and cruelty. And together, they shape a culture of VUCA. On the positive side, the culture traits of discipline and empathy combine to shape a culture of elegance. And that is why I call this framework, this methodology, elegance. I'll pause. I'm going to quickly look at the chat. Manu, I should keep trucking here, right? No reactions or hands up?
Yeah, feel free to go ahead.
Okay. So let's take forward these four terms, chaos and cruelty, discipline, and empathy, to try to come up with something visual. For example, if this meeting ended in 3 minutes, this is the slide I would hope you would take with you. Chaos and cruelty. That's what bad looks like. That's what bad communication looks like. And we need to get to a world that communicates with discipline and empathy. At the moment, most project teams, many companies, suffer from a case of meeting gridlock. They have back-to-back meetings, and people might exclaim, wow, you know, I've got so many meetings, I can't even get to the real work until after 5 o'clock. Well, let's ask in this session, what is that real work if it's not meetings? And also, many innovation professionals and BAs suffer from email overload. Together, many innovation teams, project teams, business analysts, and companies are suffering from communication traffic jams. What happens in a traffic jam? Everything slows down. It's craziness, it's chaos, and it's VUCA. Too many companies have too much of this. What would sustainable innovation look like? I believe that teams are a kind of factory. They have these factories of, I don't know, project charters, process flows, your database structure, training materials, and again, very abstract, but a metaphor for a healthy team. In this session, I will describe what an agreement factory looks like. Healthy teams are a kind of agreement factory, and dysfunctional teams are a kind of disagreement factory. The second piece of this framework is an asset portfolio. Once you have all these agreements in place, these aren't just documents. They are assets because they reduce the cost, the laboriousness, and the latency of information sharing. So in this session, I'll take a deep dive on what an asset portfolio looks like and how it is a valuable metaphor for elegance. Together, these are critical and they're healthy. But oh my God, are they dry? They are sterile. If we're going to formulate a methodology, especially a methodology for innovation, where's the fun? We need to find the fun and the beauty and the romance. As a role model, I look to the performing arts, theater, partner dance, improv, vocal music, instrumental music. This session will take a deep dive to cross-pollinate all the amazing and fun collaborative culture traits of the arts and how they can apply to our roles as business analysts and innovation professionals. The first impression of these words, discipline and empathy, they might feel like opposites, like a paradox. I believe they're complementary, and together they form a robust methodology. When you know that you are part of a powerful, thoughtful agreement factory, your confidence goes through the roof about the value that you provide your company. And you also know that your colleagues are also working in this agreement factory. So your confidence in them also goes through the roof. Because of the factory, minimizing waste, minimizing noise, insecurity can plummet, giving teams a culture of self-esteem and high confidence. In any performing art, someone is a beginner. Everyone starts as a beginner. This fosters a culture of humility. And specifically in the art of improv, the art of improv teaches us that none of us are as smart as all of us. In a symphony, a theater production, a dance couple, an improv team, it is all about the team. It is all about collaboration. Disagreeing with your colleagues, absolutely okay. That's the efficacy of a team, to have each other's back and to be able to see our own blind spots and see the blind spots of our team members. But it's not demonization. Let's get clear that there's a difference between disagreement and demonization, task conflict and personality conflict. Let's not be naive. We're competitive human beings, aren't we? We're just hungry. What would it mean to convert the competitive energy that risks undermining our colleagues, and we convert it into a culture of ambition? Ambition on behalf of ourselves? Yes. Ambition on behalf of our customer? Yes. And this session is mostly about being ambitious on behalf of your team, your ensemble. All this rigor, someone might say, Robert, you're just aiming for perfection. That's just unrealistic. No, I'm not aiming for perfection. There's a difference between sampling errors, and if any of you have had a statistics class, you will have learned these exact terms. A sampling error, it's rare, it's not on purpose, and it doesn't happen frequently. A systemic error happens frequently. It might be passive, but it's a case of neglect. The methodology aims to minimize systemic errors and systematic errors, but it's very forgiving. It's very empathetic toward simple imperfections, human error. What about the money? This framework will explain the value of low marginal cost, where because of the communication channels and the emphasis on a certain communication channel, we reduce the latency of the time that information needs to travel from one corner of the team or organization to the other corner of the team. And it also reduces the laboriousness. Low marginal cost means we can make it look easy. And finally, let's not forget who pays the bills. Who do we do it for? In the performing arts, it's all about the audience. And in innovation, in business, it's all about our customers. So the agenda for today's session, after that very, very heavy introduction, the agenda for today is agreement factory, asset portfolio, and performing arts. And I am aiming to wrap up at 20 after the hour, so I think I have about 25 more minutes. But again, I welcome questions throughout. Feel free to take yourself off mute or go crazy in the chat, and we can pause at any time. So I welcome all your reactions and questions, and I believe we'll still have time at the end for that as well. All right, at the moment, the chat looks quiet, so I will slowly move to the next slide. And finally, the takeaways. That RACI matrix that's been around for 20 years, that hasn't solved VUCA, and project failure rates are still high. We need to rethink the RACI matrix. And this session will explore how we can reset the RACI matrix to shape a kind of rhythmic factory. I will say that the RACI almost got it right. Secondly, I hope you will take the templates that I show you today. Thoughtfully crafted templates are small hinges that swing large doors of culture. You might think, a template, how administrative, it can't possibly be that impactful. I hope at the end of this session, you will agree with me that certain templates can absolutely be culturally impactful. And finally, the fun part. For the last 20 years, I've heard this phrase countless times, competitive advantage, competitive advantage. So many companies are pursuing a competitive advantage. And I believe that this pursuit has plateaued. And what the performing arts teach us is that the frontier of advantage, the frontier of profitability is how well do you collaborate? Do you have a collaborative advantage? Let's look at the performing arts to see what they can teach us. An agreement factory. As I said before, I believe a healthy team is a kind of agreement factory. And for anyone who is scared by the word sign off, because it's too static or too rigid or too formal, then I will back off a little bit and say, how about an expectation setting factory? Before your next project starts, your organization is setting expectations in the form of a roadmap, parking lot, voice of the customer, a scorecard for anything you might measure. And because these expectations on paper are outside the governance of a project, they instead are governed by certain frequencies. Some of these are worth updating quarterly. Some are worth updating monthly, and some are worth updating weekly. And then your next project starts, and you've got a whole new suite of expectations to put on paper. A project charter, your training materials, your GUI design, your process flows, your SQL, your storyboards, your test approach. And the relationship among these expectations is that many of these are one right after the other. They're sequential. And of course, some of them can progress at the same time. They're in parallel. An expectation setting factory. Frequencies, sequence. But why is the metaphor of a factory valuable? Let's look at the culture traits of a generic factory and compare them to the traits of our workplace. In a generic factory, these are some of the culture traits that I believe matter to conveyor belts. A factory cares about speed, tempo, the quality, the fidelity of the product. A factory wants to minimize waste. A factory cares about the variability. Does it produce 2 kinds of items or 30 kinds of items. A factory cares about sustainability, efficiency, scalability, the degree of automation, and vigilance. Does the factory need a lot of monitoring, or is the factory quite autonomous and it needs very little intervention? If we try to have the same exercise in our work environments, we might use words like bureaucracy, too many cooks in the kitchen, silos, too few cooks in the kitchen, friction, fear, fatigue, courage, bottlenecks, I'm being ignored, neglect, trust, interruptions. And the insight between these two word clouds is that these just aren't that different. So the word cloud on the right tries to convey that although your team isn't literally a factory, you should manage it like one because you care about all the same things. You care about your team's economics, its speed, its quality, its waste, etc. A healthy team is a kind of expectation setting factory. There's a framework, a very common, let me pause again. Manu, any questions or reactions from anyone? The chat still looks quiet.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay.
I think people are still absorbing and
Okay. Is the temp, should I speed up? Should I slow down? Am I?
I think it's good. I think
Okay.
you're doing a good pace for
Okay.
me at least. But anyone else may speak up if
Okay. Yeah. If anyone would like me to speed up or slow down, just let me know and I will do my best.
Okay. Well, according to Daniel, the pace is just right. Okay. Thanks, Daniel.
Okay. So over the last couple decades, many of you are familiar with this framework called RACI. And RACI serves, it aims to govern our project teams. Although I will admit, over the last 6 months, I have met 3 people who use RACI matrices inside a process flow, inside a swim lane diagram. That's foreign to me. I've always used a RACI matrix to govern a project, not within a process flow. So I'm just acknowledging that evidently over the last few years, some professionals use RACI different than how I've used it. But some of you may be completely unfamiliar with the RACI matrix. So quick refresher, RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And what the RACI matrix tries to do is assign or tier, T-I-E-R, tier levels of contribution of employees, team members, to the work. So what you see here along the top axis is the start of an inventory of all the project work. So here you just see project charter, design and testing, just very, very ambiguous labels. And again, the RACI matrix could go on for 10, 20 pieces of work. And then the other axis lists either the team members' names or their roles or titles. And the intersection of these rows and columns, the project team will assign a letter, R, A, C, or I, to designate what is this person's level of contribution? What is the expectation of them for this piece of work? The RACI matrix has been around for a couple decades. It has not moved the needle with regard to project success rates. After a burst of attention at the beginning of a project, and by the way, as I explain this, if any of you have strong experience in the RACI matrix, I welcome your reaction, again, off mute or in the chat. Do you love the RACI matrix? Do you hate it? Do my comments here resonate with you? I welcome your reactions if you're comfortable. My experience with the RACI matrix is that at the beginning of a project, it gets a burst of attention. And then as the project proceeds, week to week, month to month, teams only reference it casually. I heard the term set it and forget it. It does not govern a team with sustained discipline. It harbors too much ambiguity because with any of this work that's inventoried, I can't tell how formal the work is. Is it a chat? Is it 2 or 3 people? Is it 30 people? Is it a switch within a vendor tool? Maybe it's a document. I just can't tell. A RACI matrix lacks teeth. And again, as I mentioned, project success rates remain poor. I saw another, I can't read the message, but I see another message came up. Manu, any reactions on the RACI matrix?
No, that was me. I typed a message. I said that I
Okay.
have the same experience here. It's actually just
Okay.
project related. Although I've seen other teams implemented related to a process,
Yeah.
like a support process, BPO process. But for me personally, it's just project related. And yeah, I can definitely relate. Heavy attention at the start and then throughout the initiative or the project, not so much. And you know, sometimes teams will no longer follow it. Maybe those that are consulted aren't consulted so much anymore.
Right. Right. So the next page tries to reset and re-envision the RACI matrix. But let me take you quickly through the thought process. There are 3 communication channels. Well, let me back up again. When a team gets itself into trouble, the most general reaction or explanation of a team getting in trouble is the phrase, "We just didn't communicate well." No kidding. Let's double click on that and understand, well, what is the communication that needs to be improved? And what can we govern with more teeth? By process of elimination, let's go through 3 communication channels. Can a team more rigorously manage and micromanage the communication channel of meetings? An infinite number of meetings? I believe no. Can a team turn the screws and manage more tightly an infinite number of emails? I believe no. What's left? It is structured communication. The quantity of structured documentation in a team, if you'll refer back to those word clouds from a few slides ago, they're not infinite. There is a finite number of structured documents that any team needs to produce. And anything else, it's just talk. Maybe do it at the pub. But how about we re-envision the RACI matrix to only govern structured documentation? And again, the RACI almost got it right, because 4 levels of assignments feels about right to me. And what I'm going to introduce to you now, I call 5 verbs. The 5 verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. And just like the RACI matrix applies to many work products, you can apply the 5 verbs to all of your work products in your project plan. So again, I'm not evangelizing 5 verbs in every single document that you produce on a project. What I'm submitting to you is that I believe within your project plans, you can do a lot of great damage by just shepherding this agreement factory, these items on paper, governing with 5 verbs. Where the RACI matrix only says, here's the piece of work, and here's a person, and here's their contribution, the 5 verbs inside a project plan also gives you dependencies. You can see the sequence of draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. And the sequence is not ambiguous. You also have assignments that are not ambiguous. And every assignment can reserve X number of days of duration to say, I'm going to need 3 days to draft the process flow. I might need 5 days to review and revise our database structure. And as the project progresses, the percent completes rise. The combination of all of these aspects of 5 verbs in a project plan gives you wonderful simplicity. It's not reinventing the wheel. You avoid verb sprawl. It's wonderful simplicity, and the work product is very transparent. And from, I stole this quote from the book, The Four Disciplines of Execution. Execution's two best friends are simplicity and transparency. And that's exactly what the 5 verbs gives you. I'll pause here in a minute, but to finish off this slide, the 5 verbs in a project plan is unmistakably formal governance. But everything else, it's just talk, and it's not worth putting on paper. The 5 verbs shapes a culture of sustained discipline. It provides zero ambiguity. It's a racy with teeth. Also, a five verb framework in your project plan subtly converts any personality conflict to task conflict. The debate is on the page. It turns a boxing ring of people into a boxing ring of ideas. So again, I'll pause. Manu, anything in the chat or anything anyone would like to share?
We have a comment here from Rochelle. Rochelle says that she can actually relate with the 5 verbs. Interesting. So is this a framework? It's the first time I'm seeing the framework, the 5 verbs, but it does make sense. Yeah.
Cool.
And Rochelle can relate.
Yeah,
Okay.
can I unmute?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I don't have this formal process, but we are currently doing this on our project. So it's not actually what Robert is actually showing us right now, but yeah, there's a process. So well, I can relate. So that's why I can relate on that one.
Awesome. Okay. And I'm looking at the chat. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add that, there's an Indian proverb which says that, everyone's responsibility is no one's responsibility. So, in my own projects, I like to assign responsibility to a particular person if possible. And if not, then, like I feel that it's better to be more specific. And I've always found this very helpful in managing teams, particularly when there's more chaos. But to have this in the sequence, like, first drafting and then having a review timeline and then, that particular sequence of 5 verbs, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, thank you. And I saw Xander's, I want to think through out loud Xander's comment in the chat. The responsible person will be the one who's actually proactive. Yeah, so the version of this, Xander, if I play yes and to Xander's comment, so the 5 verbs translates from the RACI. Responsible becomes draft, accountable becomes approve, consulted becomes review and revise, and I of informed becomes distribute. They're the interested but non-contributing stakeholder. So when Xander says the responsible person is the proactive one, that is the drafter. And so I agree with Xander, and I believe there's a correspondence there with whoever is, and I'll share my screen again, whoever is assigned draft, because they're an excellent candidate to know, well, when they're going to be done with the draft and when they can assemble all the reviewers, those who are going to contribute to the review and revise sessions. Okay, I welcome more comments, but I can proceed as well. I don't see anything in the chat, so I'll keep going. So again, because of time, I do need to speed up. This, you'll see in the upper right, I labeled this appendix. This is what the 5 verbs looks like in a project plan, just for 3 examples: a project charter, training approach, and training materials. And you will receive the PDF of this afterwards. And if you're curious, if you don't have a good idea of, well, what would I apply these 5 verbs to? Perhaps over the course of your career, you've only had a narrow slice of vision to what innovation organizations need to put on paper. So this palette shows about 20 things that are worth putting on paper outside of projects. This middle panel is project management, process, and people. This is based on the ADKAR methodology, ADKAR, for change management. And finally, the old school tech stuff, design, build, test. But these are the assets that are, these are the widgets on your conveyor belt that you would govern with 5 verbs. There are some exceptions that are not worth talking about today, things like individual status reports and things like that. So one more slide. This, again, this will be in your PDF. You can see a snapshot of a 12-week project. What would all the project-specific assets mapped to a finite number of verbs, what would it look like in a project plan? And I hope those of you who are musicians, if you read music, you'll vaguely feel like, these might look like eighth notes, quarter notes. Feels like they could be in a rhythm, because soon, we'll get to the materials that talk about the performing arts. But of course, as you might imagine, some fraction of all of my audiences, they're skeptical. And what skeptics want is that there's a certain comfort zone with meeting gridlock. There might even be an addiction to email overload. In their project plan, 5 verbs might feel confining. I have absolutely seen plenty of project plans with 30, 40, 50 distinct verbs. Holy ambiguity, Batman. And some people prefer communication traffic jams, and maybe they're right. Maybe a significant amount of their work isn't worth documenting. Ouch. That should sting. For one person to tell another person, your work isn't worth documenting, or your contributions aren't worth putting on paper, that should sting. But the addiction to meeting gridlock and email overload is understandable, because its economic profile is what this bar graph is. For any organization that is addicted to meetings and email, their upfront cost is low. That's why it's easy and it's common. Totally understandable. But when you hear comments like, we have too many meetings, or it's just crazy town and I can't get to my real work until after 5 o'clock. Why do we have a love-hate relationship with meetings and email? It's because of this tall orange bar. It's high marginal cost. Let's compare this cost profile to the cost profile of an agreement factory. This is the cost profile of a culture, of a team that leads with meetings and emails, and documentation follows. It's an afterthought. It's a CYA. It's meeting minutes after meeting minutes after meeting minutes after meeting minutes. This is not scalable. This cannot possibly be your most profitable cost profile to communicate. Let's invert the paradigm. What if you lead with the 5 verbs? You will fill in with as many meetings and emails as you will need to process and execute and complete the 5 verbs. When you lead with documentation, you have a different cost profile. I'm sure you already know what it looks like. And that high upfront cost is why so many professionals despise structured documentation. It is completely understandable why anyone would resent, grumble, and roll their eyes at documentation. It's because it is high upfront cost. But once you have the documentation in hand, why do so many teams enjoy the benefits of documentation? Because the marginal cost to collaborate, for information sharing, to add that 26th stakeholder, to add the 27th stakeholder is very scalable. If you're a culture that is addicted to meetings and emails, your work risks being disposable, laborious, high latency, and it is a license for low expectations. If your culture leans into the 5 verbs, your work is durable. It is muscle memory, which is a reference to dancing, which we'll get to momentarily. It gives you a culture of low latency, because now information can travel fast in your company. And it is a license for high expectations. I love this quote, and it applies to the bar graphs on the previous slide. When you do what is easy, do what is easy and your life will be hard. Do what is hard and your life will become easy. Okay, because of time, I am going to only show these, and I'm going to try to minimize what I say so we can get to the performing arts. Status reports shape a culture of accountability, alignment, and momentum. This slide gives you an example of what an individual status report looks like. Of course, separately, a work stream level, a project level status report is also incredibly vital to teamwork. But individual status reports, again, this section of the presentation is about what templates disguise empathy. An individual status report is a way to manage up without kissing up. I believe an individual status report is worthwhile weekly. Also weekly, tell your manager your level of workload, because if your workload is constantly a 5, there's a bottleneck, and your manager has the incentive to reduce you being a bottleneck and reduce your workload. And the opposite extreme, if your workload is too low, it means you could be contributing more, and you might be worried about your job security or feeling excluded from the team. A workload report shapes a culture of sustainability, balance, and inclusivity. And the final template I'll cover today before we go into the performing arts is the framework I call I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. Weekly, adjacent, accompanying your status report, finish these sentences if something comes to mind. If you have a compliment to give, if you have a concern about something in the recent past or in the near future, if you have an innocent question or a politically sensitive question, consider these 4 sentences. In my past team, I didn't mandate my employees to finish the sentences every week, but I did mandate that they look at these sentences every week. I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder is worthwhile weekly. It shapes a culture of high morale, psychological safety, and for all those organizations that worry about survey fatigue, this is effectively a democratized, decentralized engagement survey. This is coaching about the 3 communication channels. Coach each other on meeting etiquette, email etiquette, and your contribution to structured documentation. This approachability menu, I snarkily subtitle, I know you hate me, but what do you want me to do differently? And finally, a very rigorous lessons learned template at the team level. So I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder at a team level. This is worthwhile monthly. It helps to tackle patterns in the problems. In this PDF, you will see an example of what would the best case scenario look like. If everything on your team was amazing and great, this is what your lessons learned would look like. If your team was the opposite, the worst team ever, I call it a doomed team, what would your lessons learned template look like? And I did write this hoping that it would be more funny than painful. You'll have to let me know. Is this slide more funny than painful? All right, I can dive into the performing arts. I'll pause. Manu, I didn't manage my time very well here. Any reason to interrupt and ask questions, or should I go on with the next section?
No, please continue.
Okay. So the agreement factory, the asset portfolio, amazing discipline, so necessary. But again, let's find the love, the romance, the beauty, the mischief, and let's look to the performing arts. The performing arts teach us culture traits of collaboration, competition, and they teach us about the artist audience or the innovator customer intersection. This word cloud tries to effectively build a glossary, be a thesaurus for, well, when we talk about collaboration, what do the performing arts have to offer us? Joining a team, practice, rehearse. We bring out the best in each other. We're listening. We trust each other to do our role. But we're also ambitious. When we get knocked down, we're resilient. We get up again. We accept rejection and failure. How amazing would it be for all of our coworkers and ourselves to have amazing rejection skills on both sides of rejection, to be a gracious dumper and a gracious dumpee? And finally, who pays the bills? It is the audience. It is the customer. We have picky customers. We have forgiving customers. We're going to hear positive reactions and negative reactions. Some of our customers are intimate. Some of them are distant. As innovators, when we innovate, we are trying to create moments that matter for our customers. GETMO is a great acronym that stands for Good Enough to Move On. The performing arts remind us, if we've got opening night staring us in the face, it's got to be good enough to move on. There is no such thing as perfectionism. Somewhere on the path to perfection, your time is more worthwhile on something else. And of course, celebration. For all the cast parties and celebrations, artists know how to party, and we as innovators need to take the appropriate moments to celebrate our successes. The performing arts teach us enforced collaboration. They acknowledge competitive energy and convert that energy into ambition on behalf of our ensemble. And instead of companies pursuing a competitive advantage, consider pursuing a collaborative advantage. In the interest of time, I will skip the culture traits for each individual art, but I hope you get the idea, and I hope the PDF afterward will help you see all the amazing culture traits that music, improv, partner dance, and theater can teach us. Instead of hybrid being waterfall or agile or in the office and remote, what if we had a new hybrid and it was just, are we on script or off script? Are we imitating theater or are we imitating improv? That would be a fun new way to envision hybrid. Why should we consider migrating from a software-centric methodology to a people-centric methodology? I believe the blast radius is huge. Methodology affects projects, jobs, relationships, and our mental health. A poor methodology ruins these things. A good methodology nourishes these things. What is the relationship between methodology and leaders and managers who come and go? A poor methodology is difficult for good leaders and managers to rescue. A good methodology is difficult for terrible leaders and managers to ruin. This is our summary. Culture traits. So my call to action for you is that over the next few months, you will consider crawl, walk, run at whatever pace is comfortable, whatever feels psychologically safe to you and your colleagues, that you will migrate to a people-centric methodology. I hope you will choose 5 verbs over verb sprawl. I hope you will choose durability over disposability, synchronization over traffic jams. I hope you will reduce the laboriousness and the latency of your information sharing. Consider disguising empathy through those templates. And the templates that I didn't get to, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn and I can describe them more. Choose ambition over competition. What if your project plan imitated a symphony? Whatever performing art might resonate with you, imitate the arts to build a collaborative advantage, because good documentation is a kind of love letter to your future team. My first book came out New Year's Day. My second book should be out in another couple months. And Manu, I left us maybe 2-ish minutes. I can stay later. I don't have any time constraints. but I welcome questions, reactions, good, bad, or ugly. So thank you for everyone's attention.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Very thought-provoking, and I'm sure a lot of those problems that you are attempting to address with your framework, with your book, resonate with the people here attending tonight as much as they, or to some degree, as much as they do resonate with me, because a lot of the things that you spoke about, I can relate. With the meeting traffic jam in communication, especially when you're working for a big organization, these things really tend to happen.
I
So
see a
thank you,
question
thank
from
you.
Enrico.
Yeah, we do. We do have a question from Enrico, and he's asking about the importance of documentation. He says that you strongly suggest the importance of documentation, which in a way could run in contrary to the Agile Manifesto, working software outcome over comprehensive documentation. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, am I sharing my screen again or not?
I don't see it. I don't
Okay.
see it, no.
So
there you go.
Enrico, let me skip through here. So the Agile Manifesto is about, the Agile Manifesto effectively is the middle column here. And you're right, the Agile Manifesto emphasizes, and this is very subjective, it emphasizes meetings and emails. It does not emphasize project independent documentation. So Waterfall is this box on the left. Waterfall emphasizes project specific documentation. Agile emphasizes ceremonies, meetings, I don't know, Slack channels. And what the Elegance framework, the Elegance methodology promotes is project independent documentation. Also, another point that Enrico could have commented on is that Agile is about high frequency, right? Sprints every 2 weeks. I would argue Agile is not about speed. There's a difference. Agile sprints are about frequency. Yes, there's this thing called velocity, but really, Agile is about frequency in reaction to what Waterfall was 30 years ago, where it was low frequency. And so that is why the Elegance methodology emphasizes low marginal cost. And over time, as a team gets skilled in its synchronization, then especially with the transparency of documentation, a team will keep its project small, right? You don't want projects small for the sake of itself. You want projects small to minimize risk. And so where Agile emphasizes frequency, Elegance emphasizes low marginal cost. That's probably enough of an answer. But Enrico, you will get this in the PDF. So we could talk more about, but that's a critical question. Is Agile was trying to solve certain things that were a reflection of the web 30 years ago in the mid and late 90s. And the Elegance methodology tries to react and respond and solve things that are relevant in the 2020s. But thank you for the question.
Yeah, all right. And thank you for sharing that, Robert. That's that helps to put things in perspective, right? That so Agile was evolved from Waterfall, and now we're trying to push it further and evolve it further.
The Agile Manifesto was written in response to what Waterfall was in the mid and late 90s, pre-bubble, when the web had splash pages and brochureware. I don't know if anyone on this call is old enough to even remember those terms. Splash pages, brochureware. So a sprint every 2 weeks totally makes sense. It's 20 years later. Web applications are a little bit different. And again, Agile just tried to fix, the Agile Manifesto was trying to fix things that those 17 dudes in Colorado, they thought were problems in the late 90s. But it's about software. And also in the PDF, I rewrite the Agile Manifesto in the style of the Agile Manifesto, but for the Elegance methodology. I don't know, Manu, if I have time, should I try to drop the PDF in the chat now?
You can if you'd like, but we're also going to distribute it. We're gonna do a email to everyone who, not just the people who are here now, but we're also gonna send it out to everyone who registered.
Okay. I think I can do this really quickly.
While Robert is doing that, Enrico, how you feel about that answer? Was that clarifying for you? And we see a thumbs up, but I'm gonna assume that that's from Enrico, but you may speak up.
And this is a long-term conversation. But at least for today, Enrico seems okay. Is your book available in PH in the Philippines? Oh, well, it's only in English. Does PH mean Philippines?
Yes, PH means Philippines. Well, the anonymous attendee is speaking in English, so I assume, are you looking for like a hard copy to like be delivered to your Philippines address, or?
So it's available. It's available on Amazon as the super short version, Kindle and paperback. The hardcover there was a misprint with an ISBN number, so the hardcover is not there. But other channels, for anyone who wants to avoid buying books on Amazon for whatever reason, I understand and respect that. There are other places like Barnes and Noble. There are other places to buy my book. My publisher has had a few small hiccups with things like the wrong ISBN number on the barcode. It's really administrative. Even you'll laugh at this. Let me clean up my screen here. Originally, so this is my book. Originally, the title was printed as if it's French or German, but the title on the spine is upside down. Because I think, right, if I turn my book, I don't know, if I lay my book down up, I want to be able to read the title. So within the next few days, this is going to get fixed.
Okay.
But you can imagine, I know, yes, Enrico, you're right. So the joke on LinkedIn, if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, you may have already seen the messages about, oh, it's a collector's item, which is funny, but I was still horrified. My publisher apologized profusely and gave me a couple hours free of marketing time and all that stuff. So when life gives you a lemon, make lemonade, make fun of it. As the art of improv teaches us, bloopers can be funny.
Okay, we have more messages if you still have time to take them, Robert.
Yeah, sure. I'm not in a hurry.
Okay, so from Luigi, he says he just wants to thank Robert for both his informative and entertaining presentation this evening. Also, great job to IIBA PH, Manu, and team. Thank you for having this collaboration with him. P.S. I hope Robert's books will come to fully booked as well. It's a bookstore here.
Okay.
There are very few BA books in the PH market.
I will do my best to specifically look that up. Fully booked in the Philippines. Okay. But yeah, I'm happy if folks do have other reactions or questions. I don't have any time constraints, so I could show more slides. I could go back to any of the appendix slides that because I was trying to end within an hour. But I could go back to any of those slides if anyone wants to see the approachability menu, which coaches others on meeting etiquette, email etiquette, structured documentation. We could talk about the lessons learned template. If it would be entertaining, I could show you the Elegance manifesto. And again, it's in the PDF, so you could look at it yourself. So I don't know, maybe, a cold reading of the Elegance manifesto might not be that
I
Danielle,
think
what is
for
Danielle?
me,
Go ahead.
oh yeah, he says that would be nice. The Elegance manifesto.
Yeah, okay. And Manu, go ahead and say your comment while I bring this back up.
Oh yeah, go ahead and put it up.
Okay.
I guess I can ask my question while you're showing that. Actually, it's fitting. For me, and I think for many of the people here, what would be on your mind if you're looking at a new framework or a framework that's trying to improve upon the framework that we're all used to is how do you start? Like if I can see lots of people in formal corporate business attire here, so I'm gonna assume that a lot of the people here are coming from big corporate structures. So for much of the people here, how do you start? Where do you start?
So so my super short answer, if I can get out of presentation mode, is whatever feels psychologically safe. If that's too ambiguous of a response, then so the second book that'll be out in a couple months, it is all about these 60 or so documents, and it goes into detail with examples and templates and how to anticipate skeptics. You know, when you meet a skeptic of a project charter, how should you react to someone who feels like a project charter is overkill or process flows are overkill? But I would recommend that to crawl, walk, run is understand which of these assets would just be easy to adapt. And so I believe up here, Manu, is my mouse visible? You can see my mouse moving up here?
Yes,
Okay. So I believe that a lessons learned might be easy for a team to adopt and get in that rhythm for a few months. I believe in approachability menu where teams are saying, hey, please coach me on my meeting etiquette, right? Someone has to be the first vulnerable person and say, I would like to be approachable and coachable about my meeting etiquette, my email etiquette. A stoplight report. Start rating the health of certain projects or metrics, red, yellow, green. If you're currently not doing individual status reports, start doing those weekly and show those to your manager, show those to your colleagues so that, you know, just like a clarinet player in a symphony, the role boundaries matter. So status reports help to minimize redundancy across team members. A workload report, weekly. Tell your manager on a scale from 1 to 5, how is your workload? Yeah, that might be enough, but you know, there's some current state documentation up here on the right. If your team is not familiar with change management, ADKAR was the first change management framework I learned. There are multiple change management frameworks out there. I chose ADKAR because it's easy to fit to the 5 verbs. So as you get more familiar with these assets, my hope is that some of these will feel, oh, that's a stretch. It would be a long time before my team would adopt that. But others will just feel easy to adopt. And that's what I mean by crawl, walk, run to a people-centric methodology.
Okay, that makes sense. And thanks for that. It sounds like, well, start with yourself. What are you comfortable with as an individual?
Yeah, the person who feels like their esteem, their confidence, their psychological safety is good, that is a perfect candidate to just start trying these ideas. I'll go ahead and, should I go back to the manifesto?
Sure thing, although we do have another, I don't know.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm just looking through I haven't read notification here, but can't figure out where it's coming from. Okay, no, I think we're good with the questions for now.
Okay.
Hopefully the book will be available in the Philippines. Yeah, this the same thing as earlier. Okay, yeah, you can go ahead. And back to the manifesto for Daniel.
So on the left is the Agile Manifesto, and on the right is what I tried to rewrite. We are uncovering better ways of innovation teamwork by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value. On the left are the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. And when I tried to rewrite it, what I came up with was expectation setting over flexibility. Low margin, and this goes back to Enrico's question. Elegance emphasizes low marginal cost over Agile's frequency. Muscle memory. Think of a dancer. If I don't have my muscle memory, then I cannot elevate my focus to style. I want to emphasize muscle memory over creativity. I don't get creativity on the dance floor unless I know the mechanics of salsa, cha-cha, bachata, etc. Ambiguity. It is a skill to be able to work in ambiguity, but another important skill is the ability to reduce ambiguity. That's called clarity. Instead of continuous delivery, let's see if we'd like to have a sense of accomplishment versus a never-ending continuous delivery. Fixing institutional errors. These are systemic and systematic errors instead of being petty about sampling errors or human errors. Let's succeed fast, succeed small, instead of fail fast, fail small. Let's be ambitious instead of competitive. Let's be generous instead of being cheap or just enough. While there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. We follow these principles. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through synchronized and paced approvals. That's the 4th verb. Draft, review, revise, approve. Through paced approvals of valuable assets. On the left, software. Software is just one of the 60 assets. We welcome changing expectations. Even within days that we set those. Remember that early reference in the slides to an expectation setting factory. We welcome changing expectations even within days that we set them. Elegant processes harness change for innovators' collaborative advantage. Approving expectations. If you think back to the 5 verbs and there's that slide that almost resembled 1/8 notes, quarter notes. Approving expectations rhythmically from a couple hours to a couple of days. Optimizing the size of each batch of expectations. Another hidden benefit of the 5 verbs is it helps teams avoid what I call the pig in the python, as in a bloated document. And it also discourages teams from having a petty, like a deliverable that's too small. And so the 5 verbs helps optimize the size of each widget on this agreement factory. Junior and senior employees must work together with schedule visibility and decision transparency throughout the project. Build projects around empathetic individuals. Give them psychological safety, a sense of belonging, and time away from the job, and trust them to get the job done. And those of you who have ever read the Agile Manifesto, like out loud or word for word, I hope this does feel like it's in the same rhythm. So I have to move this on Zoom. The most durable and scalable method of setting and meeting expectations among stakeholders is executing 5 verbs, wherever your desk is located. Again, I think that all the conversation about remote versus in office, I get it, but I think it's the wrong conversation. It's because our methodologies are poor, and that is why we're sweating this issue of, are you in the office? Are you remote? Trust, etc. When you're executing the 5 verbs, I believe it's much easier to just not care where in the world your desk is. Go live events are the primary measure of progress. The color change here is strictly for cosmetics and legibility. Elegant processes promote ambitious innovation. Junior and senior employees should be able to maintain a sustainable pace indefinitely. Continuous attention to rhythmic excellence and good balance enhances elegance. And the last page, this is crazy how the Agile Manifesto said that simplicity is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. I don't think they thought through that. This to me is called procrastination. In the elegance world, the art of minimizing verb sprawl. That's simplicity. Minimizing verb sprawl in your formal planning. The best stories, experiences, and moments that matter emerge from disciplined and empathetic teams. And the last sentence doesn't really change. And that's it. So you all are a good sport to let me, that is the first public reading of the Elegance Manifesto.
Yeah, well, I agree that it has a similar rhythm. As someone who can read music, I can agree that it has a similar rhythm to the Agile Manifesto, and there are and I like how you're trying to improve upon it. In particular, that last part, simplicity, the amount of work not done.
Well, and I'm one person. The only way I could get anyone's attention about this stuff is over the last few years writing these books. I had to be formal and forceful and confrontational, because anything less, no one would pay this work attention, and we'd be in this eternal debate, waterfall, agile, hybrid, and we would be caught in meeting gridlock for how long? So whether we talk more on LinkedIn, whether you buy the book and give me reactions, I'm just one person, and all of you are now fully, you're great candidates to help shape a second edition. Give me feedback, even if it stings. The book has blind spots. It took me a long time to get this book in a place where it was readable. The first draft of this book, not readable. So I had a sense of urgency because I just wanted to get, well, after 55 months, you want to get your book out the door. And I couldn't aim for perfectionism. So again, over the next few months or years, if you have the appetite to give me feedback and make this better, it helps all of us, and it helps the business analyst profession.
Oh yeah, definitely, Robert, and we definitely appreciate you sharing your time, sharing your expertise. After all, that's what this community is all about. It's about people coming together. And what I'm going to take from one of your earlier slides. No individual is better than the sum of the team's parts, right? So this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to learn from each other, make each other a better whole, a better ecosystem, or a better I guess music production or something like that. Something nice to listen to.
Yeah. Make work fun again. Imitate a symphony. Support each other. Yeah, Daniel, did you get the PDF in the chat? Yeah, that's what I'm publishing to the outside world, is the PDF.
We have not received the PDF yet.
No?
If you posted it in this chat.
No, we haven't received it.
Oh no, they have not. That's because you sent it to only hosts and panelists.
I'm so sorry. let me do this again. Yeah,
okay.
my chat was set wrong. All right, how about that?
Yes, can see a PDF
Okay.
now.
I'm sorry, I've been talking for the last half hour as if you could have been scrolling on your own. I apologize about that. See, attention to detail.
No worries. I didn't catch that either.
Thank you so much, Robert. I mean, this was really insightful, and it was something that resonated with me as a practitioner of business analysis. I just have one little question for you. So I see that, you started your presentation with, trying to solve the VUCA. And, I definitely see that, uncertainty and ambiguity definitely, gets reduced when we use these 5 verbs, as well as, when we have more documentation. One thing that has always bothered me about Agile was the fact that it says, they don't believe in comprehensive documentation. Now, I have always taken that comment as something subjective, because, for example, like like couple of years ago, I was working for an infotainment firm, and so we were manufacturing these, the music system and the where you see your directions and everything else on your car. And this product, we had to give a guarantee for 10 years. So usually the development would take us about 5 to 6 years, and then we will be giving a product warranty for the coming 10 years. So, overall the product would be in the market for about 16, 17 years. It was an embedded system. So, embedded system usually are, they're quite tricky, it's very specific to the particular chip that you're using and all. And if you don't have the documentation, it was a nightmare for me. So I have always appreciated documentation that way. In the organizations where I have found documentation, they were always easy to handle. However, my only concern is that there is a part of this, volatility, uncertainty that comes because of the methodology being used. But there's also there's also something about, people that you're dealing with. I cannot remember what that was, but I think there's something in management which says that I think there's a management methodology which inherently believes that people are good and they want to do good. There's another management methodology which believes that, people just don't want to do anything, and you just have to make them do things. And in my own career, I've come across, both kind of people. So do you think that, hello?
Yeah. I'm listening.
Yeah, okay. So do you think that it deals with the people aspect in any way? Or do you intend to cover any aspect from that side in future?
Yeah. So these are, you raised 2 important points. Can I talk about the documentation first, and then I'll come to the people piece?
Sure.
Okay, so on documentation, I hope that this slide, you can see my slide again, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So when the Agile Manifesto shrugs at comprehensive documentation, my response is, I'm not saying document everything. I'm just saying document wherever it reduces your long-term marginal cost. So I'm gonna look to the money decisions, the laborious decisions, and I'm gonna take an example of a menu, a restaurant menu. So the Agile Manifesto would say, don't have comprehensive documentation. And again, my response is, well, if I'm a restaurant of 2 people, 2 meals, effectively I'm a family, then what is the value of a written menu? It's overkill. That's the graph on the right. So if your communication and again, the expectations that you want to set are they're just not needed to be scaled. It's just, we're talking low quantities. Then don't document a menu for a restaurant of 2 people. But imagine gradually increasing the size of your restaurant. 5 diners, 10 diners, 5 dishes that you serve, 10 dishes. At some point, I would argue every restaurant reaches a tipping point and says, okay, without a menu, our servers talking to our customers, it's just laborious. And it takes a long time, and it's laborious to describe to our diners our 20 dishes. Well, we have pasta, and we have pizza, and we have desserts, and we have these toppings, and we have these salads, and we have these give me a break. So at some point, every organization of a certain scale, of a certain intensity, reaches the tipping point to say, okay, our marginal costs are too high. We resemble this graph on the right. In order to improve our cost profile, we have to put things on paper. So my response to the Agile Manifesto and its comments about comprehensive documentation, follow the money and just consider, do you do enough innovation to justify documentation? Or do you have enough, if you have like 2 stakeholders and 2 projects a year, but think of code. Why do we code? Because code is scale. Those activities that we automate within code are scalable because we want to repeat whatever code accomplishes. And well, if some business function is only happening like 3 times a year, you wouldn't code that stuff. So it's a very parallel argument about documentation and it's whether it's worthwhile putting on paper. But I believe that when teams shrug at documentation, they're reducing their value long term. And imagine teams saying that to themselves, saying, yeah, what we do, it's not worth coding. It's not worth documentation. Teams in this decade cannot strictly talk and email and Slack channel their way to success. So that's my formal comment about the value of documentation, because it just reduces the laboriousness and the latency of information sharing. And I think a menu at a restaurant is a very simple way to rationalize documentation, because everyone is familiar with that metaphor of a restaurant and menu and that sort of thing. Is that fair?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But again, in that also, I feel that, I mean, with the restaurant example, like I'm looking more towards, corporates that, I work with. So I do feel that, of course, there are points where, they can cost is a factor, where, the team's willingness to document is a factor. But there are also other fears on part of the team. For example, like some people tend to, there's a minority of this section of people, but there are people who do believe that, it is a threat to their job profile. So they do not want to document things like that.
I understand job security. This is a chapter under quality in my book. I believe that cultures need to decide, are we going to emphasize a culture of job security or a culture of career security? And all of us in this conversation right now have to choose. Well, if you choose job security, it means you choose to be at the mercy of your culture, your management, the industry, your industry partners. If you choose job security, you choose vulnerability. I believe you should choose career security. Be able to roll with the punches. And it's, I don't know how common Blockbuster Video is outside the United States, but within the United States, it's a common example that if I'm working at Blockbuster Video doesn't exist anymore because Netflix took them over. I don't want to have job security being at the mercy of bad management and a bad business. Instead, I'm going to choose career security. That's why IIBA is so valuable to all of us, is because it shapes a culture of career security. We must choose career security over job security. And anyone within a company, within a project, who is so scared, cheap, insecure, I get it. I totally get it. We just need to coach those people to say, you know what, if you emphasize job security, you are building your own trap. Do not be trapped.
True. Yeah.
Job security, it means you're not promotable. If someone who's holding on to a certain title, they're not promotable, I can't use them elsewhere. They're a single point of failure. People who are addicted to job security create so much vulnerability for their colleagues. There's a domino effect of bad economic results, cultural results, when you have scared individuals just hold on to their job. And it takes a good, strong leader to coach them, mentor them out of that mindset and show them how resilient career security is. So I probably beat that horse dead. Sorry.
That's a good way to look at it.
So when you mentioned what I wrote down, so is it Akanksha? Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay. So what I wrote down was sheet music and improv. And you were talking about the people aspects. Can you refresh me a little bit on what your concerns are about?
It was, I mean, this was one of those, like, people not, like we were touching on, resolving the problem of VUCA through, comprehensive documentation and through, having a limited set of words. But I was talking more in terms of, like this particular example where, people don't want to, document what they are doing just to create a dependency or, factors like that. So, yeah. So I just wanted to know if you also intend to cover these items.
And Manu, I saw your comment. So let me think about this. Inherent good, inherent bad. They want to be indispensable. I'll how do I answer that right now? I'm still struggling to give you a succinct answer. About the let me try the inherent good versus inherent bad question. And my mouse froze on me again. So does the workload report, this is about vulnerability and transparency about whether you're buried or whether you're underworked. I just expect everyone to be honest about what this is. And you hurt yourself if you're dishonest. I wish, I hope, I wonder. This is an engagement survey. This is asking what are your sentiments about the health of your work? If you're being bullied at work, you're going to say something like, I wish Johnny wasn't a jerk. I hope Johnny won't be a jerk. I wonder if Johnny is bullying other coworkers. And your manager is responsible for shaping your culture so that you can focus on your work instead of being preoccupied with a lack of psychological safety. Another common dysfunction in teams is when meeting etiquette is bad. So this tool, the approachability menu, shapes a culture of vulnerability and humility, saying, what can I do differently about my meeting etiquette? What can I do differently about my email etiquette? Where do you want me to contribute differently in documentation? And this translates to the 5 verbs. Every employee, I don't care how junior or senior you are, you need to get coached on your meeting etiquette. You need to be coached on your email etiquette. This is about two-way psychological safety. And I don't care about personality conflict. I just want to know what you want me to do differently. I don't want personality conflict. I want task conflict. The approachability menu is an excellent way to defend your meeting etiquette if you think it's okay. But let's have the debate about behaviors, not personalities. And another tool for psychological safety is a very rigorous lessons learned. Same 4 sentences. I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. And every team, monthly or so, should ask, how is our safety? How is our sense of belonging? How is our transparency? Right? For a person who doesn't want to document things, then we can say, I wish Johnny was comfortable documenting his work so that Johnny could take on a new job and be promotable. But no, Johnny is addicted to his current title and scared. Let's reflect on our simplicity, accountability, alignment. So I'm hoping this is a rigorous tool so that teams tackle what I call the pattern and the problems. I believe that lessons learned exercises that are simply, what did we do well? What could we do differently? It doesn't probe rigorously enough. I believe this template shapes a culture of self-awareness. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Month to month, this should change. If you're seeing the same things populated in this template month after month, it means your culture is unresponsive. Again, I didn't spend much time on this earlier, but hopefully this example of the dream team gives you an idea of, well, what would I populate? If I had a compliment about sustainability, a compliment to your team about sustainability might read, I like that no one is working themselves toward burnout. We don't have a crisis. Stylishness. Let's be honest. I've worked on projects that I absolutely would not put on my resume, CV, or LinkedIn profile. But if your project is stylish, your project should, take credit for it. And then the opposite is this. I have had one exercise where we went one by one in a conference room and we read this out loud and tried to keep a straight face. And this sentence about accountability. So the 1, 2, 3, the fourth row, by this time, the room is cracking up and people are laughing. On the topic of accountability, I wish people knew their job, actually did their job, only their job, or just got another job. And then the bottom row is like a miscellaneous catch-all. Just to acknowledge, we all have blind spots. And my hope that last comment about success is inevitable, if a team doesn't feel that success is inevitable, every week, ask yourself, what else could we be doing so that success feels more inevitable? It's going to be transparency. It's going to be safety. It's going to be documentation. It's going to be assignments in your project plan. I don't know.
All right, thank you for that. And unfortunately, we are all out of time.
Yeah. Okay.
So I will just wrap up. But not to worry, everyone. We will provide you with a means to continuing conversation via email. We will send out the materials and you will upload the YouTube video. We look forward to interacting with you all more. Just before we go, I'd like to share this certificate of appreciation. Thank you so much, Robert, for sharing your time and knowledge and experience. And we can't wait to see your progress with your book and with your other books coming out. And we're glad that that you've chosen the Philippines chapter to share with. We will be I'm sure everyone here will agrees with me when they say that they'll look forward to how your journey progresses, and there's a lot of conversations to be had around this. So we'll also reach out to you around specific topics. This is a very thought-provoking topic after all. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to the next occasion to cross paths again and chat with Zoom, LinkedIn, email, whatever occasion brings us together again. It's great.
All the best for the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I hope the people-centric methodology catches up.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everyone attending, of course, I'd like to thank everyone attending, all the chapter members who helped me organize and market this event. Thank you as well. And we look forward to connecting and growing and evolving together as always.
And don't be surprised if I attend another one of your events late at night at crazy hours. Just don't be surprised to see me again. Just be in your audience.
Oh, we'd love that. We'd
Later
love
this
that
year.
for sure. Okay, so have a good evening and good morning to you, Robert.
You guys too. Thanks for hosting, Manu. Okay. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Manu. Bye-bye.